The night was quiet, cold, and still. The stars were shining above the forest, far away from the cities. No one expected anything strange. But then, the sky tore open. A bright flash burned across the sky like lightning. A fireball crashed in two. The deep forest with a loud sound. Trees shook. Birds flew in panic. Animals ran. The earth trembled for a few seconds, and then silence returned. Jake Miller, young man in his 20s, was camping nearby. He sat up quickly in his tent, eyes wide. "What the hell was that?" he whispered. He grabbed his flashlight and rushed toward the light. His boots hit the dirt fast, heart beating fast. He had no idea what he would find. When he reached the crash site, he saw smoke rising. The air smelled like burning metal. Trees were broken. In the center of it all was a glowing silver pod, half open, steam coming out. Then he saw her. She was lying on the ground. Pale skin, glowing marks on her arms, long silver-white hair. She had no clothes, just thin pieces of some strange material hanging from her. She looked weak, almost lifeless. Her chest rose and fell slowly. Jake froze. Was she? ... Human. He moved. Closer, slowly. She didn't move. Her lips were blue. Her body was shaking. She was cold, freezing. He took off his jacket and carefully placed it around her. She opened her eyes, glowing violet eyes, and looked at him. She tried to speak, but her voice was broken, dry like wind through glass. Jake whispered, "Hey." "It's okay. You're safe now." She blinked, confused, scared. Her hand reached out, then pulled back. She was expecting pain. But Jake didn't hurt her. She passed out. Jake carried her back to his cabin nearby. He lit the fire, gave her water, covered her with blankets, and waited. Hours passed. She finally woke up. She looked around the wooden cabin. Everything was strange. To her, the walls, the lights, the smell of food. Jake gave her a warm bowl of soup. She stared at it like it was magic. Then slowly she took a sip. Her eyes widened. It was warm. It was good. Jake smiled. "That's called soup." She looked at him. She couldn't understand his words, but she understood one thing. He was not afraid of her. Everyone else would have run away. He pointed to himself. "Jake," she tilted her head. He repeated slowly, "Yak." She opened her mouth, struggled, then whispered, "J ... He laughed softly. Close enough. Outside, the government was already tracking the crash. Satellites had seen the fall. Military trucks were moving toward the forest, but Jake didn't know. All he knew was that a strange, broken girl from the stars had landed in front of him. And something inside him said she needed help, not fear. The girl touched her chest and whispered something in her own language. Jake didn't understand, but her tone was sad. Lonely. She had no home. No name, no clothes, no hope. She had come from a place beyond the stars. Running from something, hiding, maybe dying. But Jay didn't ask questions. He just looked into her glowing eyes and said softly, "Stay with me, forever." And for the first time, she smiled. Suddenly, Jake's phone rang. He picked it up. Robotic voice spoke. "Warning, you are sheltering a dangerous life form. Step away immediately. She is not safe." Jake looked at the girl. She was staring at him, silent, waiting. He turned off the phone. "I don't care," he said. "She's safe with me." Outside, something moved in the trees. A red light flashed. The hunt had begun. The girl was asleep, but her mind was wide awake in her dream. She was falling through stars. Planets passed by like dust. Voices whispered in her ears, 100 at once. Some cried, some screamed. Some spoke her name, a name she could no longer remember. She stood in a glass room, fire outside, a city burning, strange towers melting. The sky above cracked like broken ice. She looked down and saw her hands covered in light. Not fire, but something brighter, something alive. And then she saw the face, the one that chased her from her world-tall dark eyes. A silver crown. Her brother, he whispered in the dream. You will forget who you are, but I will find you. She woke up screaming. Jake ran into the room. Hey, you're okay? He said. Kneeling beside her, she was shaking, her skin glowing faint blue. Sweat rolled down her face. Her breaths were sharp. He gave her water. She drank it with trembling hands. Jake looked into her eyes. Was it a dream? She looked away, then pointed to the window. She drew a symbol. In the air, a circle with 3 lines. It glowed faintly before fading. Jake blinked. What was that? She pointed to her head. Then she pointed to the sky. Real. Later that day, Jake brought her a notebook and a pencil. Try drawing, he said. She opened the notebook and began to draw with amazing speed. Her hand moved like wind. She drew stars, moons, planets, and then a black hole. Around it, she drew ships, broken, burning. Jake sat beside her in silence, watching. Then she drew a face, his face. She smiled. Jake smiled back. That's me. She nodded. Double quotes. Do you have a name? He asked softly. She looked confused. Then she slowly pointed to her. Heart. He waited, but no sound came. She couldn't remember that night. She walked outside alone. She looked up at the sky. Her home was out there, somewhere, but it felt far away. Now, like a forgotten song, Jake joined her. You missing someone? She didn't answer. He gave her his hoodie and sat beside her on the steps. He spoke slowly. You know, I think you came here for a reason. She turned to him. I don't think it was a mistake, he said. You landed near me. You survived. You're strong. She stared at him with soft, bright eyes. Then, for the first time, she said a human word clearly. Home. Jake blinked. Home. She nodded. He smiled. Yeah, maybe this can be your home now. But not everyone felt the same. Miles away, inside a black vehicle, 2 men in suits watched satellite footage. She's communicating now, one said. She's learning human words, said the other. Do we extract her? Not yet. The girl is dangerous. We observe. They turned the screen. It showed Jake and the alien girl on the porch. Sitting under stars. One of the men whispered. She remembers something, and when she does, we act. The next morning, the girl woke up before Jake. She looked through his books. She found an old children's storybook. She opened it, a picture of Earth, a house, and a smiling family. She smiled. Then she opened the notebook and drew one more thing, a star. And next to it, a small house. She added 2 stick figures. One was clearly her. The other had messy hair and a hoodie. Jake, she wrote under it in messy letters, stay. With me, that evening, something strange happened. Jake went to throw out the trash, while outside he heard a buzzing sound, like bees, but deeper. He looked up. A drone was flying above the house. He waved at it. It flew away. When he came back in, the girl was holding his phone. A message was flashing. We know she's with you. Jake stared at her. She looked calm, but her eyes were sad. She already knew this world would come for her, and yet she didn't run. She picked up the pencil again and wrote one new word, fight. Jake shook his head. No, you don't need to fight. We'll figure this out. She pointed to herself, then him. Together. Jake smiled. Yes. Together. It began with the dog. Jake's neighbor, old Mr. Carson, had a dog named Toby. Always quiet, always calm. But on that morning, Toby wouldn't stop barking. He barked at the sky. He barked at the trees. He barked like he could smell something. The humans couldn't. The girl looked up from the porch, her eyes narrowing. Something had changed. Something had arrived. Inside the forest, 5 men in black armor moved like shadows. No footsteps. No sound. One of them spoke into his helmet. Target confirmed. Energy signature matches. She's here. Another replied, orders. Observe first. Eliminate if hostile. They raised strange weapons. Sleek, silent, not human-made. There, helmets had red glowing eyes. They weren't here to talk. They were here to finish what others had failed to do. Back at the cabin, Jake noticed the birds had gone quiet. No chirping, no wind, just silence. He looked outside. The girl was sitting on the porch steps, hugging her knees. Her face was still, but her eyes were moving, scanning the trees. Jake stepped out. Something wrong. She didn't answer. Then she stood up slowly and pointed toward the woods. A whisper escaped her lips in her native language. Hunters. Jake didn't understand the word, but he understood the fear in her eyes. She grabbed his hand and pulled him back inside the cabin. She touched the floor and closed her eyes. Her skin began to glow dim, pale blue light. Then she spoke a word softly, a word that made the walls shake slightly. Jake gasped. What did you just do? She opened her eyes. Shield. Jake blinked. Wait, did you just protect us? She nodded once, but outside the soldiers were already watching. Energy wave detected. One said, she's shielding. Means she knows we're here. Confirm weapons. Prepare breach. Jake paced the cabin. We need to leave. I don't care if they're government or aliens. They're after you. The girl looked at him, confused. He pointed to her, then out the window. Danger. She nodded. Then she placed her hand on her chest and whispered, my fault. Jake stopped. He walked over, placed his hand on her shoulder. No, you didn't ask for this. We'll get through it. You're not alone. She looked up at him, then she whispered a word in English. Promise. Jake gave a soft smile. Promise. Outside, the leader of the black armored team raised his hand, dropped shield with sonic pulse. She can't hold it forever. They launched a silent round. A low-frequency pulse hit the cabin. The lights inside flickered. The girl gasped, falling to her knees. Jake ran to her. What's happening? She was trembling. Her hands were on the floor. Her glowing marks flickered weak. Jake clenched his fists. He grabbed his old hunting rifle and stood near the door. He knew it wouldn't stop them, but he wasn't going to let her go without a fight. Then a loud noise. The door was kicked open. One soldier entered. The girl raised her hand, weakly. A small blast of light hit the man's chest, throwing him back. But the others came in fast. Jake pulled the trigger, bang. One soldier fell. The girl tried to stand, but collapsed again. A soldier aimed at Jake, then paused. Wait, he said. Don't shoot him. The others lowered their weapons. Why not? One asked. The lead soldier stepped forward. His helmet opened, revealing a human face, but not entirely. His eyes were too dark. His veins glowing. I want to know why she chose him. The girl slowly stood up, bruised but not broken. She faced the soldier. He tilted his head. You ran across galaxies, through fire, to this world. And for what? He asked. Why him? Jake looked confused. Me? He asked. The soldier walked closer. She holds knowledge, weapons, power, and instead of hiding in space, she ran to a human. He turned to her. "What do you see in them?" The girl spoke, slow but clear. "Heart." That word stopped him for a second. Then he raised his weapon again. "Too bad it won't save you." Before he could fire, a blast of light shot from the girl's chest. The air shimmered. A wave of invisible force knocked all the soldiers back. Jake shielded his face. When he looked again, the girl was floating, her feet barely touching the floor, her body glowing like a blue flame. Her voice echoed like thunder, but soft. "Leave this place." The soldiers crawled away, their tech fried, their weapons dead. One whispered, "She's awakening." They ran, the light faded. The girl collapsed again. Jake caught her in his arms. Her body was cold but alive. He looked down at her heart. Racing. "What are you?" He whispered. She opened her eyes and answered in a voice filled with sorrow and strength. The last of something old, and the first of something new. Asterisk. It began with a mirror. Not a real one, a cracked piece of glass hanging on Jake's cabin wall. The girl stared into it for a long time. She did not blink. She barely breathed. She just stared out at the strange face in the reflection, at the eyes that glowed softly, even in daylight, at the hair silver falling like quiet snow, at the scars on her neck, and the mark under her left eye. Not human, not anymore. Maybe never was Jake. Walked in and saw her like that, frozen, lost in thought. He said gently, "You okay?" She didn't reply. Her eyes were still locked on her reflection. Then, finally, she whispered, "This is not my face." Jake blinked. "What do you mean?" She stepped back from the mirror, like it had burned her. She turned and placed her hand on her chest, then spoke a single word in her native tongue. The sound was soft, but powerful. It vibrated the wooden walls like thunder trapped in a whisper. Jake felt it in his chest. He stepped back. "What? What was that?" She looked at him. Her eyes no longer confused. They were angry. "And sad," she said, in broken English. "My name is not my name. It was taken." Later that night, she began to draw again. On the cabin floor, seized chalk and ash from the fire to sketch symbols, circles, spirals, a flame. She explained in pieces, with gestures, pictures, and scattered words. Jake listened, silent. Her past was stolen from her. Not forgotten, erased. She had been a prisoner, not in chains, but in memory. They took her voice, her true name, her identity. Not by force, by technology. Mind erasure. She showed Jake a small glowing line on the back of her neck. He understood. She was not just hiding from someone. She was escaping from herself. Jake stood in silence. "So, what do I call you now?" She looked up, shrugged. She didn't know. He thought for a second. "How about Lyra?" She tilted her head. "What is Lyra?" He pointed at the stars. "It's a constellation. A story in the sky. I used to look at it as a kid when I felt lost." She stared for a while, then nodded. "Lyra," she repeated. "It feels warm." He smiled. "Then Lyra it is." But peace never lasted long. The next day, Jake's phone rang again. Unknown number. He answered. A robotic voice spoke. "You renamed her. That doesn't change what she is. Return her now, or we take you both." Jake looked at Lyra. She had already heard it. She didn't look afraid. She looked ready. That evening, Jake and Lyra sat on the porch. She watched fireflies move in the dark, she whispered. "They don't erase the bugs. They erase the stars." Jake frowned. "What do you mean?" She pointed at the sky. "My people, they erase stars. From memory. from maps, so no one finds the ones who run. Eyes widened. They erased your whole planet. Lyra nodded. Then, Tita, how did you remember your name? She tapped her chest. Not memory, not mind. Just feeling. Jake nodded slowly. Your soul remembered. She smiled faintly. Suddenly, Lyra stood up, her body stiffened. She whispered one word. Brother. Jake jumped to his feet. What? She pointed into the forest. They're coming, she said. Jake grabbed his flashlight and gun. Same soldiers. She shook her head. Worse. From far beyond the trees, a new ship appeared. It was silent. Black, like a piece of night that had torn loose and fallen. It hovered just above the tree line. A blue beam shot down, and a figure floated out, tall, pale, with the same glowing marks as Lyra. But his eyes burned red. Lyra stared at him, frozen. Jake looked at her. Is that who I think it is? She nodded. My twin. He took my name and gave it to the enemy. The twin hovered above the trees. He looked down and said in a voice that echoed across the woods, You were not supposed to wake. You were not supposed to love. Now you must be reset. Jake aimed his rifle. You want her? You'll have to go through me. The twin smiled. I plan to. Lyra stepped forward, fire in her veins. No more running, she said. Then she added, loud and clear, my name is Lyra, and I remember everything. She could hear his heartbeat. Jake was standing in front of her, between her and her twin, shaking. Gun in hand, breathing hard. He was only human, flesh, bone, courage, and yet he stood against something born of stars. Lyra's brother floated above the ground, cold eyes burning like fire. You are weak, he told Jake. Jake didn't answer. He just held his ground. Lyra stepped forward, placing her hand on Jake's shoulder. I won't let you die for me, she whispered. Jake looked at her and replied softly, I'm not dying for you. I'm living for you. The twin raised his hand. A blast of force shot toward them. Lyra raised both arms. Blue light flared from her palms. The blast bent around them, crashing into trees behind. Jake stared at her. You didn't do that before. I couldn't, she said. Not until now. Why now? Lyra's voice trembled, not with fear, but clarity, because now I feel. The twin landed on the ground. His footsteps were silent, his expression calm. Emotion is not strength. He said. Lyra stepped in front of Jake. Double quotes, no. Emotion is what makes us real, she replied. It's what you were born with and what you destroyed. The twin's face twitched for the first time. You've chosen them, he asked, disgusted. Lyra nodded. I've chosen something better than war, better than memory. I've chosen heart. The twin raised his weapon again. This time it hummed with red light. Lyra whispered to Jake, run. But Jake didn't move. You saved me, he said. Now it's my turn. Before she could argue, Jake lifted his rifle and fired. The bullet didn't hit, but it gave her time. Lyra unleashed a wave of blue light that knocked her brother backward into the trees. Come on, Jake said, grabbing her hand. Time to go. They ran through the forest. They reached the old abandoned town nearby. Broken buildings, empty streets, cracked signs. Jake pulled her into an old church. Inside, dust hung in the air like snow. Light came through the stained glass windows. She sat, breathing hard. Her hands glowed faintly. Jake lit a candle. He'll come. She nodded. He always finds me. Jake knelt in front of her. You said your people erase stars. Yes. Then let's do the opposite, he said. Let's light one. He took a small pendant from his pocket, his mother's necklace. Here, this is yours now. She touched it gently. It didn't glow. It didn't activate, but it felt. Warm. Human. Jake pulled out his phone and turned on a video. Old Earth things, children laughing, people hugging, music playing in the streets. Why are you showing me this? She asked. Because this is what we fight for. She stared at the screen. Her eyes became glassy. I've never seen joy before, she whispered. Jake smiled. Now you have. Suddenly, the ground shook. He was close. Lyra stood. We end it now. Jake followed. Together. Outside the church. Her twin stood again, glowing red. You left your species, he said. No, Lyra said. I became more. You chose them over us. No, she said. I chose myself. They fought light against light, memory against heart. Jake was thrown back, injured, blood on his face. But Lyra stood tall. Every time she looked at Jake, her power grew stronger. He was her anchor, her reason, and in the final moment, as her brother raised his blade of red light to strike, she closed her eyes and smiled. Then she whispered, I am not what you made me. I am who I choose to be. And a wave of blue exploded from her body. When Jake woke up, it was morning. The town was quiet. His wounds were healing. Slowly, he sat up and looked around. Lyra? She stepped out of the shadows, limping, glowing faintly. He stood. You're alive. She nodded. So is Earth. Later that day, she sat beside a lake. Watching ducks float, Jake brought her warm tea. She asked softly, what makes humans strong, he thought, then said, the heart. We feel pain. We cry, but we get back up. She nodded slowly. Then I want a heart like that. Jake looked at her with a small smile. You already have one. Asterisk, it began with the sky turning black. Not from clouds, but from ships. Dozens of them. Metal giants with glowing red engines, shaped like knives cutting through the stars. They hovered over the cities, over forests, over oceans, watching, waiting, and then, one by one, they began to descend. Earth was no longer just a planet. It had become a battlefield. Jake stood on the rooftop of a small town building, holding binoculars next to him. Lyra stood still, face toward the dark sky. A blue light pulsed from her skin, steady, like a heartbeat. They came for me, she whispered. Jake lowered the binoculars. No. They came because they're afraid of what you're becoming. She didn't look at him. Instead, she whispered, they should be. Around the world, governments panicked. Military jets launched. Sirens screamed in cities. People ran underground. But in one quiet control room under a mountain, a general stared at a screen showing Lyra. He tapped his finger on the glass. This girl, he said, could be the reason we survive, or the reason we fall. Back in the small town, Jake and Lyra joined a small group of locals who had stayed behind. Farmers, mechanics, a nurse, a teacher. People with nothing but courage and love for their home. They didn't trust Lyra fully, but they trusted Jake. And Jake trusted her. That was enough. Night fell. The first ship landed. Outside the town, it didn't fire. It didn't speak. It simply opened its metal mouth. And out came warriors. Tall, silent, armored in shadows. Their eyes glowed like coals. One of them raised a weapon. Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was calm, clear, and human. You don't belong here. They attacked. Light and fire danced in the streets. Humans fought with guns, fists. Fire, Lyra fought with something older, something deeper. Every time a child screamed, her power grew. Every time Jake fell and got back up, her heart grew stronger. Jake was hit, thrown against a wall. Blood. On his face, he blinked, vision spinning. Lyra turned. Her face froze. She rushed to him, kneeling beside him. "Don't," he whispered. "You have to fight." She held his hand. "No," she said. "I have to protect." She stood, looked at the enemy leader, her brother, still alive, floating. High above the battlefield, he shouted from above, "This world will burn for what it took from me." Lyra looked up, eyes glowing brighter than ever before. "It gave me something you never had," she said. He laughed. "What?" She whispered. "A reason to care." And then it happened. The ground cracked beneath her feet. A circle of blue light spread out in every direction. Machines froze, weapons died. The alien army stopped moving. Stunned from the sky. Humans saw something impossible. A pillar of light rising from one small town. A signal, a message. Earth fights back. The alien fleet above began to fall. One by one. Their engines failed. Ships crashed into the sea. Into the desert. Into nothingness. Lyra didn't scream. She just stood there, silent, glowing. Hands open as if the entire planet was standing through her. Her brother dropped to the ground, smoke rising from his armor. He crawled forward, coughing. "You're not one of them." She walked toward him. "No," she said. "I'm something new." He looked up at her, afraid, for the first time. "What are you?" She looked down, softly. She answered, "I'm human. Enough." He raised his hand, weakly. She touched it gently. Not with hate, with peace. He collapsed, and it was over. Later that night, the town lit candles in the street. No power. No phones. Just light from flame and heart. Jake sat on a bench, bandaged, tired, smiling. Lyra sat beside him. People walked by, nodding at her, not as a threat, but as one of them. She watched the stars, now clear again. "I didn't destroy the fleet," she whispered. "I just reminded them what fear feels like." Jake nodded. "And you reminded us what hope feels like." She smiled. "I think I want to stay." He looked at her, eyes soft. "You already have." The war was over, but the sky still looked broken. Pieces of fallen ships floated in the clouds like dead birds. Smoke danced with sunlight. Silence hung heavy across the town. Lyra stood barefoot in the field where the last ship had fallen. She closed her eyes. She listened, not for enemies, not for voices, but for Earth, and for the first time. She heard it wind, grass, life. A world not born from metal or memory. A world that did not erase the past, but learned to live with it. Jake sat nearby, watching her. His arm was in a sling. His ribs hurt when he breathed, but he didn't care. He was alive. She was alive. And somehow, that made the whole world feel new. He stood up, walked toward her, and said softly, "You don't have to leave anymore." She opened her eyes, looked at him, and smiled. "I never wanted to," she whispered. That night, Lyra lit a fire behind the cabin. She sat beside Jake and held something small in her hands. A silver disc from her ship. Cracked. Faintly glowing dot. Jake leaned in. "What is it?" She looked down. "My return key." Jake frowned. "You mean you could go back?" She nodded slowly. "To the stars. To what's left of my people." Jake stayed quiet for a moment. "Will they be waiting?" "No," she said. "But they might be watching." He looked at her, serious. "So, what are you going to do?" She stared into the fire. Then she whispered, "I will choose." In the morning, the sky was clean. The world, bruised but breathing. People from nearby towns came with food, water, and questions. They looked at Lyra with a mix of wonder and fear. One little girl walked up and gave her a flower. "You're the Star Lady," the child said. Lyra smiled and knelt. "No," she said gently. "I'm just Lyra." The crowd heard it, and for the first time, they clapped. Not in fear, not in warning, but in respect. In a quiet moment, Jake and Lyra sat by the lake. He asked, "Do you miss your world?" She thought for a long time, then said, "I miss a place. I never really knew, but here I found something real." Jake tilted his head. "What?" She turned to him, eyes soft, warmth. "Laughter, forgiveness, things my people erased." He nodded. "We're not perfect," she smiled. "That's what makes it beautiful." Later that night, she stood alone with the disc in her hand. She pressed it once. A small blue gate opened in the air, spinning like water beyond it. The stars called her home. She looked back at the cabin, at Jake, at the girl with the flower, at the world that had taken her in. Then she stepped forward and dropped the disc into the fire. The gate closed. Ash rose into the night, and with it, her past. The next morning, Jake found her outside, barefoot in the dew. He smiled. "You stayed." She looked up, eyes glowing faintly. But now, more human than ever. She said 3 words, simple, final, true. "This is home." Months passed, the world healed. People rebuilt, and in the small cabin near the edge of the forest, Lyra stayed. She didn't wear armor anymore. She wore denim. She helped plant trees. She taught children to listen to the stars, not fear them. And at night, he sat with Jake on the porch, not to hide from danger, but to watch the sky. Hand in hand, not wondering who was coming, but who might need them next. One day, the little girl who gave Lyra the flower asked, "Were you really an alien?" Lyra laughed gently, then bent down and whispered, "Maybe. But now, I'm something better." And so, the girl who had no name, no clothes, no home, no hope, became something new. Not a soldier, not a queen, but a part of humanity and Earth. At last, whispered back, "Stay with me forever."